Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got another new combination that we haven't tried yet, or at least a new shell that we haven't run, and it's kind of going to continue our testing with some of the more basic field style loads to see if they can actually be used as a turkey shell or not, and if they can hold a pattern good enough out at 40 or so yards. But as for the shells I brought out here today, I picked up some of the Herters hunting field loads. They are a 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch ounce and a quarter payload of lead number 4s, moving about 1220 feet per second. So these are definitely just your very basic upland field style lead 4s. There's definitely nothing fancy about them, that's for sure. And I'm definitely curious to see what kind of wad they have in them as well, since these type of shells can vary, and if it's actually going to hold up through a turkey choke or not. But these are a very cheap shell, although Herters has generally done pretty well for us with a lot of their stuff. So we'll see what they give us. And as for the setup we're going to be running them through, I brought out my Remington 1187 with this choke, which is a Primos Tight Wad 660 constriction turkey choke. Now I decided to kind of go with this one for a few reasons. Number one, 660 constriction seems to be about the most reliable to get a decent pattern out of a lead 4 field load like that, based on what we've seen in some of our other tests. And this tight wad is another very cheap choke. So could this be a last minute or very cheap basic budget type of combination? Because you can get these tight wads for anywhere between like $17 and $25 or so, depending on where you get them from. So definitely a very budget oriented combination that could maybe work out for us. But as for today's test, everything is the same as usual for one of these. I'm not handicapping these shells at all. We're going to see what they can really do at 40 yards. So the turkey paper's set up at 40 yards, and I've got the chronograph so we can get our velocity from them as well. So let's get you guys a view of the target and take the shot and see just what the Herter's 4-shot can do through the Tight Wad 660, and if it's a usable enough turkey combination, or if you should probably just stick to shooting upland and stuff with that shell. So let's take our shot and see what kind of pattern we get. Alright, so that shell gave us 1290 through the chronograph. The boss claim is 1220, but we do have a 28-inch barrel on that 1187 with that extra 3/4 of an inch or so of choke sticking out of the end. So overall, 1290 is probably pretty realistic, and with these being a cheap shell, it would probably fluctuate a little bit as well. So not looking terrible for a velocity, and they were very nice in the recoil department to shoot as well. So if they patterned well, they would be a very nice shell to actually turkey hunt with in the recoil department. But let's go down and actually take a look at that pattern and see what it was able to give us. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. And I gotta say, I don't think we can argue with this one bit. We absolutely have a dead bird there all day long. There was 1.5 or so through the top of the brain, several more down the neck and spine there, and we were even just a touch off to the right. So that right there is just what I would call fantastic for a very basic, cheap field load like that. Those pellets are not plated. That load is not buffered in any way. It's just lead number 4 shot in your basic field wad. So that's just the perfect example right there on why you kind of should test a little bit of everything, because you never know what's really going to surprisingly perform well until you try it. And that right there is a turkey pattern that I wouldn't be scared in the slightest to use. That's a 2 3/4 inch, 1 1/4 ounce payload of 4s, moving at a little bit below 1300 feet per second. With a pattern like that, you could turkey hunt with that all day long. Now we do have a couple of flyers around the edges. There's a couple down there a little bit low and maybe a few off over on the left, but for what this load is and for a $20-ish choke, I can't really complain about a couple of flyers. We might not have a super tight hot baseball like core, but this middle, say 15-18 inches or so of this pattern right here is pretty even. There really isn't any kind of voids in there that I would be concerned about at all. I mean, you can see we were just a touch off to the right and we still absolutely have a dead bird. And that's a pattern that is broad enough to where it would give you a little bit of leeway in at closer ranges, but still have a very reliable performance out at 40 or 45 yards. These are lead 4s, so with that kind of a pattern, 45 yards is definitely not out of the question at all. So yeah, I think that pretty much speaks for itself. A very cheap box of shells going through a very cheap choke, that shouldn't really generally be a combination that we would think highly of as a turkey combination, but I don't think we can argue one bit with that kind of performance. performance. I wouldn't be scared to use that in the slightest. Those would be some fantastic shells through that choke to turkey hunt with, since they're not going to knock your teeth out if you got to take a little bit of an awkward shot. They're very nice to shoot. So I'll take that all day long. And now I'm really curious to try those shells through some other chokes and stuff to see what they're able to give us. Because who knows, we could maybe even get a little bit better out of it than that, which would be pretty impressive. So definitely no complaints from me at all here today with that kind of performance. Alright, and here's the wad from that shell, and as you can see, it is your very, very basic, standard, field, upland, trap style wad. There's nothing fancy about it at all. There was no buffer in here at all. It was just lead shot, and there's nothing stuck down in there. There might be a couple little pinholes around the edges, but definitely nothing I'm concerned with. And as for being as basic as these are, in this style wad, I think it threw a very nice pattern for us. So whatever they did with these, Herter seems to know what they're doing yet again, because this combination worked out perfectly fine. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that performance right there? I don't think we have too much room to complain about that. That is a more than good enough turkey pattern all day long out at 40 yards. I mean, we've seen much more expensive dedicated turkey shells do way worse than that. I wouldn't hesitate to use that out to 40 or 45 yards all day long. And it's going to be very pleasant while doing it because it feels the same as any old skeet load as far as recoil goes. These are really light on the shoulder. So for somebody who might be older or recoil sensitive, or even like the youth hunter that has a 12 gauge that they need to take out on a turkey hunt, that combo right there is more than good enough to do it. And once again, I'm not sponsored or partnered or affiliated with Herters / Winchester, who is actually the manufacturer of the Herter stuff, but I'm not affiliated with them at all. And once again, they've made a shell that you just can't argue with. It seems like right now, at least in the shotgun shell world of off-the-shelf big box store shells, Herters is some of the best stuff out there, which is surprising because I haven't really been able to say the same as far as the consistency and stuff on a Winchester shell. But whoever the crew is that's making the Herter shells seems to have something figured out. But I guess leave all your thoughts in the comments. Is that about what you expected? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of the Herter shells regardless of if they're a dedicated turkey shell or not? Would you hunt with that kind of a combination? And is there another choker setup that you want to see us try these shells through? Let me know all that down below, because I definitely want to see what these can do through a couple other chokes as well, because there is always the potential that we could see better than that. So definitely nothing short of an impressive performance considering these shells and this $20-ish choke today. We don't have any room to argue with that. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like to. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.